everyone. In the last episode, you have seen how did the British East India Company extend their control over different territories by forcing subsidiary alliance on Indian states. In this episode, we will further analyze how the company brought the Maratha Empire under its control and established its rule over the entire subcontinent through policy of paramountcy and Doctrine of Lapse. From the late 18th century, the East India Company sought to curb and eventually destroy the Maratha power. The Maratha Empire or the Maratha Confederacy was an Indian power that existed from 1674 to 1818 and ruled over much of the Indian subcontinent. The founder and consolidator of Maratha dynasty was Shivaji Bhosle, also known as Chhatrapati Shivaji. He ruled from 1674 to 1680. After the death of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb in 1707, the Maratha kingdom expanded into a vast empire under the rule of Peshwa. Peshwa, the Prime Minister in Maratha Empire. In 1761, the Maratha army lost the Third Battle of Panipat against Ahmad Shah Abdali of Afghanistan. The defeat in this battle shattered Maratha dream of ruling from Delhi. Later, the empire was divided into many states under the chiefs or sardars belonging to different dynasties. These chiefs were held together in a confederacy under the Peshwa, who became its effective military and administrative head based in Pune. The Maratha Confederacy consisted of 5 major chiefs: the Peshwa at the capital of Pune, the Gaikwad chief of Baroda, the Sindhya chief of Gwalior, the Holkar chief of Indore, and the Bhosle chief of Nagpur. But all of them were engaged in a bitter conflict among themselves that they ignored the real danger from the rapidly advancing foreigner, the British. With the fall of Mysore in 1799, the Marathas were the only major Indian power left outside the sphere of British control. Hence, the company turned its attention towards them and began aggressive interference in their internal affairs. The British subdued the Marathas in a series of wars. The first Anglo Maratha War, that began in 1776 and ended in 1782, ended with the Treaty of Salbai. There was no clear victor. The company offered a subsidiary alliance to the Marathas, but the Maratha chiefs were not ready to accept the British rule. They tried to protect their state. The conflict led to Second Anglo-Maratha War that began in 1803 and ended in 1805. The battle resulted in the British conquest of the Orissa and the territories north of Yamuna River including Agra and Delhi. The Third Anglo-Maratha War of 1817 to 1819 was the final and decisive conflict between the Company and the Maratha Empire. In this battle, the British crushed Maratha power. The Peshwa was removed and sent away to Bittur near Kanpur with a pension. The kingdoms of Indore, Gwalior, Nagpur came under the control of British. The victory over the Marathas in 1819 left the British in control of virtually all the territories of India south of Sutlej River. The ways in which the Company captured the kingdoms of Mysore and Marathas clearly shows that from the early 19th century, the British pursued an aggressive policy of territorial expansion. Lord Hastings was the first Governor General of British India. He introduced a new policy called the Policy of Paramountcy to control the Indian territories. Under this policy, the Company claimed that its authority was paramount or supreme. Hence, its power was greater than that of Indian states. Using this policy, the Company annexed many Indian kingdoms. This policy was continued by the British to bring the whole India under its rule. However, this process did not go unchallenged. For example, Rani Chennamma of Kittur in the present-day Karnataka resisted the attempt of the British to capture her small state. She was arrested by the British soldiers in 1824 and put to prison where she died in 1829. In the late 1830s, the East India Company became worried about Russia. The Company thought that the Russia might expand its power across Asia and enter India from the northwest. Driven by this fear, the Company attempted to bring the northwest region of India under its control. They fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan between 1838 and 1842 and established its indirect rule there. Sindh was captured in 1843. Next in line was Punjab. But Maharaja Ranjit Singh put up a strong resistance to the Company. He died in 1839. The Company had to fight two prolonged wars with the Sikh kingdom before it was annexed in 1849. The final wave of the British annexation of the Indian states occurred under Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor General from 1848 to 1856. His policy of annexation was known as Doctrine of Lapse. He declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male successor in his kingdom, then his kingdom would lapse, that is, it would become a part of Company's territory. Earlier, in 1825, the East India Company issued a notice that a Hindu king is free to choose his real heir or adopted child as successor. But in 1931, the company challenged its stance and issued a new policy which stated that no adopted child would be considered as a successor of any ruler. Under the Doctrine of Lapse, the company annexed many kingdoms one after another. This includes Satara in 1848, Sambalpur in 1850, Udaipur in 1852, Nagpur in 1853 and Jhansi in 1854. In 1856, the company also took over Awadh. Dalhousie said that the territory was misgoverned by the Nawabs. Therefore, the British rule was needed to ensure proper administration. The Nawabs of Awadh were British allies since the Battle of Buxar. They were most obedient to the British. The Nawab had many heirs to succeed him. Therefore, the Doctrine of Lapse could not be applied on Awadh. But Dalhousie was keen to annex Awadh. Thus, he found a new idea that was necessary to free the people of Awadh from the misgovernment of the Nawab. On this pretext, the company annexed Awadh in 1856, and with this, all the Indian states came under British control. Dear students, now you have viewed all the 5 episodes of the module From Trade to Territory that depicted how the British established a vast empire in India. We could see that the East India Company came to India for trading and was transformed to a territorial colonial power. The invention of new steam technology in 19th century helped the British to a great extent in establishing the colonial power in India. Till then, it could take about 6 to 8 months to travel to India by sea. But steamship reduced the journey time to just 3 weeks. This enabled the Britishers and their families to come to a far-off country like India. By 1857, the East India Company exercised direct rule over 63% of the territory and 78% of the population of Indian subcontinent. The company also exercised indirect influence on the remaining territory and population of the country. With all these, the East India Company had virtually the whole of India under its control. But the year 1857 also witnessed a great uprising of India against the British rule, which we will discuss in some other module. Thank you.